I think I was like 8 years old, 7 years old, when we were driving home one day and my dad suddenly pulled the van over. If you've ever been riding in the back of a van when someone immediately pulls it over to the side of the street, you're like, someone's died, what's happened? Pulls it over, he gets out. He spotted this box on the side of the road, and inside the box were 12 baby chickens. I'm not making this up, this is a real story. It had fallen off a chicken truck, and they were just there, 12 little chickens. And so my dad's like, what a cool project. We're going to bring them home and raise them. So he brings them into the van. He's like, kids, look, chickens. And my mom's like, they are filthy. What are they doing in here? And so he brings them in, and on the way home, we named them. There was 12 of them, so we named them the 12 disciples, right? Hang on, it gets better. One of them died between the time we picked him up to the time we got home. He was Judas. We named him, don't worry, we named him Judas, all right? True story. So we get him home, and then we start doing the busy work of, building a shelter and feeding them and watering them. Okay, I can't lie to you. My mom did the busy work of feeding them and watering them and building stuff. And after a while, it became very clear they were not going to give us any eggs, right? So they grew up quickly. It was clear they're not going to give us any eggs. My mom was tired of doing the work. So guess what happened to the 11 disciples that were left? Exactly, right? So me and my brothers were very excited. We're sitting there at the table, and there's a freshly cooked chicken right there. And it was going to be delicious. But my sisters were looking at it, and they're like, Mom, I can't eat Peter. I just can't do it. I just can't. He's sitting right there. I knew him. I saw him. I just can't eat Peter. And she's like, Dad, why would you do this? Why would you do this to us? Because they knew him. Couldn't eat him. He was delicious, by the way. Peter was absolutely delicious. Why would God allow Jesus to be the sacrificial lamb after he was brought to this earth and people spent time with him and loved him and the disciples grew in this intimate relationship with him? If he is the sacrificial lamb, then why? To answer that, we have to go to the book of Hebrews. Go ahead and flip forward to the book of Hebrews chapter 10, and the author of Hebrews answers the question, why does Jesus need to be the sacrificial lamb? Now, stick with me here because we're building on what message we have to share with others, okay? What did Jesus open the door? How does this connect with grace? Look at Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1. It says, for since the law has but a shadow of the good things to come instead of the true form of these realities, it can never, by the same sacrifices that are continually offered every year, make perfect those who are drawing near. Now, in the Jewish world, you had to make regular sacrifices in order to hold off the punishment from God. This is like, we call this idea atonement. It's like making payments so that the debt doesn't come in, it's not called in, it kind of holds off God's wrath. I've got to make these payments over and over and over again, but these payments to God will never make me perfect. In fact, the interest is way too high. I'm never going to get ahead. It's never going to make me perfect. So we keep offering these sacrifices, but the writer of Hebrews says it's never going to be enough. The writer goes even further. Verse 2, otherwise, if it did make you perfect, then we wouldn't have stopped them, since the worshipers, having been cleansed, would no longer have any thoughts of their own sin. But verse 3, but these sacrifices, in them, there's always a reminder of sin every year. So every time I offer this sacrifice, I'm reminded I've messed up, and even what I'm bringing is not good enough in the presence of God. It's an imperfect sacrifice. And then the writer gets to it, verse 4. For it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats, it's impossible for any human sacrifice to take away sins. The point is this, you can try to make sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice to God, and it will never amount to anything substantial to save you from your sin. When the writer says perfect here, it's saying lacking nothing. Being whole, being at peace. Many of us are chasing down this thing that will try to make everything else make sense. Many of us are chasing down something, a piece that we're missing or something that will provide for my life, a semblance of I'm not missing it or messing it up, but I'm whole and I'm not incomplete. Many of us walk through life with a desire to be whole. And year after year, day after day, we think if we just make the right sacrifice, then we'll get there. If I just sacrifice a little bit more time, then I'll have enough money and I'll finally be